think it's been a very wonderful 1.5 days exploring a lot of issues and thinking about how diagnostics should be positioned within, this time for public health programs when we have so many issues with regard to the use of diagnostics, development of diagnostics. Everything, I think, needs a new sort of re-examination of what we should do. And so I think this panel is in a really good position for us to think about how, I said we have to change the culture of how we worked, because we now need to be much more responsive. We need to be doing things faster, better, much more informed. In fact, patients are more informed. They come into the doctor's office, they already done a search on the internet, and they can tell you everything. And so I think we really need to be thinking, okay, it cannot be business as usual anymore. And so I like to every one of the panel members to say, okay, from the discussions that we had, what will you think should be sort of the overall change that we should bring about, and then what would you think would be the next step? What would you do on Monday, for example?
So on Monday, I'll have to catch up on emails, but no. Besides that, no. I think the issue is around, for me, one of the big issues around having access to specimens for so that we can have our developers, we need it for development, we need it for assessment, we need it for health technology. I mean, not only regulatory approval, we need it for health technology assessment. Having clear channels in place. And obviously from today's conversation, there was confusion even in Brazil, what you could or couldn't do, let alone for those outside of Brazil. And, that's fair enough. The system probably had never been challenged before. And this is, so we are all learning. This is not a criticism. It's about, all right, let's see what we can do. I think, for me, I'll be taking back the message, and I'm meeting with a lot of the Blueprint team on Monday, and I'll be discussing how, perhaps this is an issue we need to be raising as a higher priority, and looking at, making sure countries know about these new MTAs we're developing, and just what we can do to accelerate this, and defining priorities around access to specimens and all that to assist countries in that decision. So that to me is certainly one of the big issues, because that I think everyone can certainly make access faster.
Well, I was taking some notes this morning to remember the homework. Then, but I was talking to Leticia when I started within Anvisa. I thought that we should know everything to be prepared to any question. But it was very easy to understand that this is simply impossible. As much as we study, more questions will come. So, and this last year was an amazing example on how difficult it can be, and considering the limitations that the agency has, and the limitations to get expertise on this. So, this kind of initiative is so important, not only for the involved, but for the government and for the population of our country. So we have the chance to talk to you, to get information that we would not be able to get, WHO information from people that are specialized on this kind of devices. We do not have any specific expertise on any device. We have to have a general overview of all. So it makes things sometimes a challenge. But initiatives as the IMDRF is something that we are investing a lot of time and efforts on this, because we believe that as much as we can have on a harmonization is very difficult to get, but as much as convergence as we can get, easily the products will get to the market and help to solve this kind of problems. So also, I think that, just let me check if I remember. So in this field, we are very pleased to have the chance to have your help, and I would like to thank to Leticia and Carlos for the chance to be working with all of you.
Hi, for those who may not have met me, I probably should just introduce myself previously since I wasn't on the program. I'm Andrew Fish. I'm Executive Director of AdvaMed DX, or AdvaMed Diagnostics. We're the U.S.-based trade association for diagnostic manufacturers. And we are a member of the Global Diagnostics Alliance, which Carlos also participates in, and Jesus Reda here from EDMA, and our Japanese colleagues as well are here. And we also have associations from Australia and Canada that participate as well in the Global Diagnostics Alliance. And the reason that I point that out in particular is to say that we are extremely strong proponents of this global and regional dialogue, not only around regulatory issues specifically, but about the broader issues of how important it is to get out diagnostics information to patients into the healthcare system. And so I wanted to, I think, just focus for a moment on an issue that I think is really critical to fully leveraging the value of diagnostics for better healthcare longer term. Certainly these regulatory issues are important, and we really applaud the efforts on global harmonization. Sometimes I think it goes more slowly than we'd all like, but it's so much better to be going slowly than not be going at all. So these conversations are really critical. But I think there's a really important principle, or almost a philosophy of patients in healthcare that can be driven by diagnostics, and that is having as much direct access to health information as possible by patients. And it's something I think is relevant and has its own variations in every country around the world, whether it's in the more developed countries, like I spend most of my time in, or it's in the lesser developed countries. And that's ultimately about using diagnostics to get more and more information to patients. But I will say I think there's an inherent bias against that from some quarters. And I think that certainly in the U.S., our regulators struggle with the question of how much information is actually appropriate for patients to have without going first through a doctor or being in the hospital rather than being at home or in some other less formal healthcare setting. And I really think this is something that we should really need to continue driving more direct discussion around, because we're talking about the regulatory issues of what kind of regulation you need to get these tests out. But there are underlying questions of where is it appropriate for people to get healthcare and to have access to healthcare information. And certainly I think, speaking at least from a U.S. perspective, but probably a true in many places, is that there's a real disconnect between how much information people have about healthcare conditions and how much information they want about healthcare conditions and about their own health, but how little information they can actually get themselves without going to a doctor, without going to the hospital, without going to a laboratory. And I think in general, we strongly favor getting more and more tests out that can be directly accessed by patients. And in the long run, that would be a much better thing for patients and for public health. So that's enough of my speech, but I look forward to more questions and discussion. Thank you.
Benny is my name, from Ghana. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've always seen this forum or these platforms as a means of learning and contributing to whatever we are doing back home, to ensure that whatever products are there for patients are not prevented from accessing those products. So as a regulator, or from the regulator's point of view, we are learning and we are picking up the pieces that we need not frustrate industry trying to bring products onto the market. From our end, we need not reinvent the wheel. Things that have been done, assessed, and seem to be okay. We need not frustrate the system from bringing it back onto the market. But what we also would like to carry across is that we don't want to be seen as, quote-unquote, a dumping ground where anything is just thrown at us. So in a bid to avoid that, we'll do a little bit of assessing whatever is brought to us, but not in a bid to frustrate anything or frustrate anybody. So we are learning. And I'm happy or grateful for this forum to be able to get more. A challenge to manufacturers, if I should throw it that way, is that looking at the environment. It is not every product that you need to, if we are always going to look at products that are temperature sensitive, we want to put them in a certain temperature category, we may be finding it's a challenge. Because in other parts of the world, you may not have ready access to electricity to keep products in a certain temperature range. So certain people will be denied the benefit of those products. So it's a challenge to manufacturers who are out there that when developing a product, look at the environment, look at factors that can influence or be able to have products that would not necessarily have to be kept under a certain temperature, cold temperature, that would deny others from having access to. Having said that, I think it's a good forum. I've picked up a lot. When I get back home, whatever processes we are developing, whatever processes we are going, we need to improve on that and ensure that we facilitate whatever comes to us. There are products that have been mentioned here that we have them registered on our market already. And I believe that when we go back, we will still be looking at other ways of improving whatever we have. We've picked up a lot from the WHO, from previous training programs, from pre-qualification programs. We have registered products that have been pre-qualified. And when those products come, it's a fast track. We call them a fast track process. You only do a minimal evaluation of documents that you have to be sure that whatever documents are being given to you are really what they are supposed to be. And then we facilitate the process. Once again, we are grateful, we are learning, and we'll continue to learn.
Sí, bueno, creo que todos estamos de acuerdo que definitivamente debemos mejorar el acceso al diagnóstico de calidad en los diferentes países de Latinoamérica y el mundo. Y también estoy de acuerdo en que si bien ayer hemos escuchado hablar de las pruebas de VIH autoadministradas y que uno mismo se puede realizar el diagnóstico, sin embargo, creo que aún en otros países ni siquiera hablamos de autoadministración, sino simplemente de la disponibilidad y el acceso a las pruebas rápidas. Entonces, como hemos escuchado la presentación ayer de Roxana, de que se está trabajando en tecnología en salud y estamos soñando, y eso es bueno, pero en otros países aún estamos muy atrasados solo con el acceso al diagnóstico. Entonces, creo que estas reuniones, este tipo de discusiones nos tiene también que apoyar a ver cómo nosotros contribuimos para mejorar el acceso al diagnóstico de calidad y cómo lo hacemos más eficiente en los diferentes países. Creo que es importante la regulación porque esto nos va a ayudar obviamente a organizarnos, a ordenarnos en cada país, pero también creo que tenemos que buscar un equilibrio, porque he visto en algunos países, como en mi país, en Bolivia, que cuando alguien quiere importar algún diagnosticador, eso se vuelve en un vía crucis y le piden por poco el DNA de su abuelita. Entonces, esto es muy difícil. No conozco una entidad del gobierno que diga, tú quieres importar esto que no se importa aquí, ven, te vamos a asesorar, te vamos a apoyar porque vas a contribuir al diagnóstico en nuestro país, vas a mejorar el acceso. Entonces, quizás a través de la OMS deberíamos crear esa asistencia técnica para que los gobiernos no sean como tan exigentes, más papistas que el Papa, pero sin embargo son los primeros en generar caminos paralelos para cosas ilegales. Lo siento decirlo esto, pero todo Latinoamérica ha tenido problemas de corrupción. O sea, no estoy hablando de un país en específico. Entonces, a veces el ladrón piensa que uno es de su misma condición, entonces le ponen trabas y en algunos casos he escuchado que la prueba rápida tiene que ser 100% sensible y 100% específica. Eso no existe, ¿no? O si alguien quiere importar, por ejemplo, una prueba para ébola, ¿de dónde va a conseguir 100 muestras positivas si no tenemos una epidemia en ese país? ¿Me entienden? Entonces, a ese nivel también necesitamos reflexionar para que haya una asesoría y no es solo pedir requisitos y pedir requisitos, porque si no, el acceso al diagnóstico lo volvemos cada vez imposible, ¿no? Y creo que, pues, básicamente este tipo de reuniones definitivamente nos ayudan a ver cómo estamos, dónde estamos y qué es lo que nos falta por hacer. Agradecerle a Carlos y Leticia por promover esto. Yo sé que no es fácil, pero pues estamos a la orden y vamos a seguir bregando desde donde nos toque. Gracias.
It has been great. I think the objective is really to get people together, to put all in the same path of discussion, seeing the challenges, things that are missing. And I think we all do great jobs at our own spots, but actually we need to share more and more. That's the thing. For instance, in Brazil, we have, some of you know, this Health 4.0, which is basically a big study that we did on Brazil. The main aspects, main bottlenecks, using the life cycle that WHO has indicated as appropriate for medical devices and diagnostics. Considering that, we were able to make a full analysis and see how we can actually get some proposals on board for each one of the 4 phases. R&D and innovation, regulation, pre- and post-market surveillance, access, health technology assessment, and finally, to make the proper analysis of the healthcare system. Because any kind of improvement that you make, you actually are closer to an incremental innovation that you can put in the market. You're hearing the voice of the patient, you're following up what the healthcare professional is doing, so you can actually make a little bit a better improvement for the device, for the diagnostics. So it's very important. And the future is already with us. You were saying the example of Malawi with the cloud, sharing information. That's digital health.
Yep.
We, as associations, we are all working together and see how we can actually make more improvements with the industries and so forth. So the messages there are, we do have a lot to share, so we have to have the proper channels to put this. Aladif is one of them. IDC, in the International Diagnostic Center, is another. WHO has the channels, so we must be connected in doing that. That's one. We, as industry, we are all working together to make alignment of innovation, of messages, to be quicker in responding to needs with the Global Diagnostic Alliance. So that's another. For the regulatory part, examples of Brazil, we are very well connected with Anvisa, and we have been learning together. There are sometimes problems, and then we discuss and we go and find new solutions, and so we're improving. But we feel that the same can be applied for the countries, at least within IMDRF. So there is a possibility that we can have this kind of event as a kind of satellite event in the next year, probably September next year. Let's try. I think it would be a nice kind of combination of stakeholders together to go in deeper in certain subjects. So it's something we can work. And last but not least, let's take down the barriers and try to make a better access for patients to our products. That's in a safer, proper, and cost-effective way. That's, I think, the final message.
Yeah. I really appreciate the panel members, with their views. And I like Augusto's remark that, we used to think we know everything, but we don't. And this is so true of everything that we do, right? We're so dependent on other people to give us, their input into everything that we do, because no longer can we sort of work in these silos. But yet, traditions and, sort of legal issues are hard to break. Because even though you're here at this meeting, last week at the Advanced Course for Diagnostics, which is only a course, it's for policymakers, every WHO speaker that I invited has to go get legal approval, the legal department approval, to come to speak at the course. And 2 of them didn't get approval in time and couldn't come. And I had to give the lecture instead. I was asked to give the lecture instead. Now, so even though you are working very well, with everybody here, the organizational issues are still there. That culture of us and them against industry, it's a huge barrier, because it gives a really bad signal to industry that wherever industry is in the course, that legal has to approve their attendance.
But I think you need longer lead-up time for invitations too, because
The invitation went to Mary Paul in March. So anyway, that's one thing that I thought, although, there's willingness on the part of WHO to collaborate with industry, organizationally it needs to change, right? There has to be a better environment, outbreak after outbreak. We're still seeing the same thing that, I remember in the flu outbreak, industry wanted to support a database. The big pharma companies and the vaccine companies wanted to support a big database for WHO, and WHO had to refuse. Legal said no help from companies to establish a public health database. Well, these days, so we end up not having a database with which to manage the outbreak. So I think those barriers need to break down, not one individual at a time, but as organizations. And to Andy's point about re-examining access to health information, empowering the patient to be able to know better, what's good for them, right? This is a whole issue. This is the whole basis behind the sustainable development goals, is the power of the community, the power of the individual in the community to be responsible for their own health. And so I think there is now a lot of thinking about how communities can actually decide what they like to do. But I really need to think that communities need to be better informed before they make decisions, and how do we do that? And so there are lots of things to do. And with the presentation from Fia Cruz about, the development takes about 10 years, ? And then, that whole thing of validation and everything, 2 to 3 years, is still a long time, right? So the only example that I know of where the policy change happened during usually everybody tells me that the policy change in countries happen 5 or 6 years after a product is approved, because it takes that long for countries to actually figure out how to use a new test. And they wait for systematic reviews, they wait for small pilots, they wait for big pilots, etc. And then, they still can't figure it out because they don't know their health system very well. So you've set a really good example in Brazil that you actually have your health systems figured out, so that with any new technology, any new innovation, not only diagnostics, but other health products, that how to quickly assess the possible potential impact. And that's what we need to do. I try to advocate for countries to do that, to know at least their own health care, lab infrastructure to begin with, and then possibly, if it's antenatal clinic for maternal and child health, do they know where the clinics are, where women go for treatment and all that. So those, if countries are much more prepared in knowing their own healthcare system well, then they would be a lot better at uptake of new technologies. So I think these kind of fora are really important. I really thank you for putting this together, and we are very happy to support it. Thank you.
Eu gostaria de encerrar, então, agradecendo a presença de todos, o esforço, a atenção, a participação, o entusiasmo. E I would like to thank you all for the efforts, commitment, enthusiasm that you have dedicated in this 1.5 day, and wish you all a nice trip back home. For those who can still enjoy it, there is a nice sunny day outside, so please enjoy. E para aqueles que voltam, bom retorno, suas famílias, e muito obrigado, e até a próxima. Em breve nós vamos anunciar no site da Ladiv, a gente vai mandar um e-mail, as apresentações vão ficar disponíveis, e o Maurício está preparando também alguns textos que a gente pretende depois encaminhar para quem de direito, seja dentro dos nossos países, para quem participou, Ministério da Saúde, CGLab, e Anvisa, e OMS e London School, até para compartilhar. So we are also going to have some small reports on the outcomes with suggestions for whoever is entitled to take the proper step altogether and for the next future actions. Então, muito obrigado e bom retorno a todos. Obrigado.